Yes, sir. Welcome to All Eyes on Cleveland. It is September 17th, the year 2021, and I am elated to have the man next to me join the show. His name is Nate Ulrich of the Akron Beacon Journal, one of my favorite person to cover the Browns in all of Cleveland. And we are honored to have him on the show tonight. So, very excited to have you on, Nate. How you doing, sir?
Good. Thanks for having me, Brad. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Yeah, as you know, a little technical difficulties over here. I got the headphones on. It's kind of throwing me for a loop here, but I'm adjusting. But we'll make it work. I want to ask you, sir, and first of all, thanks for your time here tonight on a Friday evening. Little bonus episode for followers of my channel here. So, not often we do Friday night work, but it's great to have you. Um, Anthony Walker to the IR. It sounds like 3 weeks at a minimum. Is that what you have heard? Is that what you know about this injury?
Yeah, so he hurt his hamstring in Thursday's practice. He was added to the injury report, and they put him on IR Friday. So, yeah, he does have to miss a minimum of 3 games. Now, the bright side of this is that Kevin Stefanski said, yes, they expect it to be the 3 games. They
Yeah,
don't think he's going to miss more than that. So that would bring him back. If he misses the 3, that would be Houston at home, Chicago at home, and at Minnesota. So October 10th at the Chargers. If he follows the timeline the Browns have right now early on in this recovery, then he would be back for that. Obviously, that's the next really big game on the schedule. Not to dismiss any of the other ones. I mean, the Browns can't dismiss them. The players, the coaches can't, but we can look ahead a little bit, Brad, right?
yeah, absolutely. We can look ahead. Just finding that Chargers game does kind of loom large as they looked very good in Week 1 and will certainly be formidable as Justin Herbert looked great and that defense looks quality as well. Um, so yeah, that would be great to have him back for that game. Who takes over at Mike, you think? And along with that question, Nate, how does this affect the personnel, for this defense? Do you think they'll adjust personnel wise without him there? Maybe to, when they go nickel, when they go more defensive backs on the field in some of their sub packages, can they get JOK on the field as the only linebacker or one of the two linebackers on the field, do you think?
Well, I guess first of all, like looking back at Sunday, they played 4 linebackers, and Walker played virtually every snap. He played 62 snaps against the Chiefs. That was 95% of the defensive plays.
Yeah.
And then the other 3, it was like a real even distribution. JOK was at 25 snaps. Taki and Mack Wilson were at 22 apiece. So you lose the guy who you're relying on the most. That's the downside here. Obviously, you lose your defensive signal caller. But I think that JOK, it's just inevitable that he's going to continue to rise. I think this is just merely going to accelerate it a bit. And
Okay.
this is a guy that, they obviously traded up the draft in the second round, considered taking in the first round, have a lot of confidence in. But Joe Woods all along has been kind of like pumping the brakes. Like, I get so excited when I look at this guy's skill set that I just want to have him do everything, and I don't want to give him too much too soon. So I think he's going to get more. I think he'll be the snap count leader here. So,
Okay.
um, without Walker, I think that's where that ends up, and then he is a fixture in nickel. As far as who's going to be the Mike,
Yeah.
Stefanski said today Malcolm Smith or Elijah Lee. Now
Huh.
Elijah Lee is going to be promoted from the practice squad, and the Browns will make that move on Saturday. I think Malcolm Smith will, get the nod, so to speak, as the starting Mike. But obviously, I don't expect him to play. I would be surprised if he played like virtually every defensive snap the way Walker did. I think it's going to be more of an even distribution with more going to JOK. And I think Smith, though, will probably, based on experience, he is the elder statesman in the room. He is
Yes.
the former Super Bowl MVP. I know it was a while ago, but the experience is there. The trust in him is there from the coaching staff. I think if they keep that defensive signal caller responsibility in the linebacking core to be Smith, it would make the most sense. Obviously John Johnson III did it for the Rams last year when they were the number one defense. So, he has a lot of responsibility. He's very vocal. He's always talking. So, it wouldn't surprise me to find out down the road that, he's heavily involved too. So that's a way I kind of look at it. But I do think this really lends itself to, a more rapid rise for JOK than we already thought. And we thought it was just going to be ascending quickly anyway.
Yeah, kind of forces him into that role a little bit more, as they will need, somebody that can go sideline to sideline, certainly without Walker there, and obviously Jacob Phillips already out until at least November. So this, linebacker room is banged up, Nate, a little bit here. Let me ask you this. Mack Wilson, he struggled on Sunday a bit. We heard his name bandied about in trade rumors a little bit right before the season started. I actually had somebody tell me last night that the Chiefs were very interested in Mack Wilson. Do you know that to be true, or how close were they close to getting rid of him, you think?
Yeah, I don't know specifically that the Chiefs were, but it wouldn't surprise me. He had his best game of the 2020 season against the Chiefs in that divisional round game. Obviously, he caught some criticism from Travis Kelce for the hit on Mahomes that resulted in Mahomes going in concussion protocol. Hey, I've talked to Mack Wilson about this. He says he thinks it was a good play. I look back at it. I think it was a good defensive stop. I agree with him on that. But obviously, when you have a superstar quarterback and he gets knocked out of a huge game, you're going to feel some type of way for Travis Kelce. And then obviously Mahomes' mother, and I believe his fiance too, voiced some displeasure on social media too.
Yikes.
So,
yeah,
I mean, that was back then on January 17th. We didn't see any bad blood spill over, this past weekend or anything like that. But
no.
The point is, I think he had a really good game in the divisional round. So, that wouldn't shock me because, we see that a lot when a guy shows out against a specific team and, maybe there's a surplus at his position. The Browns did draft 2 weak side linebackers, the position that Mack Wilson plays. So other teams are going to see that and they're going to inquire because teams talk about all types of scenarios and virtually every player. And when they see a guy like Mack Wilson who has some nice upside on the surface, trying to hang on there when they draft JOK in the second round and Tony Fields the second in the fifth round, I have no doubt that his name is going to come up. So that's how I read that situation. And as far as Mack Wilson, he had a great training camp, Brad. I mean, that's not hyperbole. He really did.
Yeah.
Obviously, sprained AC joint in the shoulder and the preseason game, but didn't miss a practice. But I think that slowed him, even though he worked through it. And, obviously I think that he can have a better outing Sunday than he did in week one, and we'll be looking for it.
Yeah, they're going to need it for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You're watching All Eyes on Cleveland with special guest tonight, Nate Ulrich of the Akron Beacon Journal. Let's stay on linebackers for a second. Reuben Foster, blast from the past name there, was supposed to work out with the Browns today. Do you know how that went or anything like that?
I know he worked out, and I know that it ended with him leaving without a contract.
Okay.
The Browns were never expected to sign him. This was a due diligence workout on their part.
Okay.
He's been working out for other teams, and I think that this was just, giving a guy a look, keeping an open mind. Obviously, there's a lot of off-field issues in his past. Typically Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski aren't going to go after that kind of guy, whereas John Dorsey would go after that guy often.
For sure.
There are exceptions to rules. We know Malik McDowell's story and his rise here, so you can't rule anything out. But that was never going to be, a done deal, an imminent signing or anything like that. It was just taking a look at a guy, and it did not have to do with Anthony Walker Jr. getting hurt. The workout with Foster was scheduled before Anthony Walker Jr. ever hurt his hamstring. It just happened to be
The
after
day
that.
after, yeah.
Yeah, he did get hurt in that practice after it had all been set up and reported and everything that it was going to happen.
Interesting. Okay. We also hear today from Stefanski, Nate, that Delpit likely to return on Sunday, more than likely to return.
Yeah,
What does that look like, Nate? Because for me, the whole question is, okay, great, he's gonna return, and we want to see him out there. We want to be careful with him. You want to ease him in, but you got two starters out there right now. So what does it look like? How does he get on the field? Is the only way he gets on the field if they go to that dime three safety look that Joe Woods has been talking about?
yeah. So here's the thing. I know you want to talk a little bit about how a defense would evolve and things like that. And obviously, they're going to play different teams different ways. They're not going to play everybody the way they played the Chiefs because not everybody's Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill. Thank God for the Browns, right?
Yeah,
Uh, so Joe Woods wants to play a lot of dime. Like ideally, he would play it a decent amount. Like we're so used to nickel being the true base defense, like in other words, what they're in most of the time, and that's with every team. But
yeah,
in Denver, Joe Woods played more than 400 snaps a season of dime when he was a defensive coordinator. And he told the Browns in-house radio show in the offseason in an interview when he was breaking down dime,
yeah,
they only ran 16 snaps of dime last year, Brad. And you're nodding like you already know that because you follow everything that's said just like me.
yeah,
I thought that was interesting
yeah,
because it just shows you that when you hear a narrative like Joe Woods never got to run the defense that he wanted to last season because of injuries and personnel, well, that's putting numbers to that
yeah,
narrative. Like this guy has a philosophy and he wants to use dime. He wants to use big dime with three safeties specifically. And Grant Delpit is like the key to unlocking all of that and why they drafted him in the second round. So he ruptures Achilles October 24th, 2020 in a crazy practice. Greedy Williams also had nerve
goes
damage
out
in the
right
shoulder in the
after him.
same
Yeah,
practice. So that dime thing went out the window last year. And so they want to get back to it. But here's the thing, like Grant obviously missed most of training camp with hamstring issues. Also coming back from the Achilles is a whole thing in itself. And so like Woods said the other day, Thursday when he talked, that yeah, he wants to get Grant in there, but he's only just really taken his first team snaps recently coming off
right.
first live team reps recently coming off the hamstring. So I think it's been working him in slowly. So yes, expected to play which Sunday, which will be his NFL debut. But I don't expect him to go heavy with that dime right off the bat. That would really surprise me. Like based on what Wood said, I think that they'll work him in and try to get some looks in it, but that it won't be like, hey, we're ready to roll out the full dime experience yet, because I think that they're going to kind of ease into it a little bit. Just
Yeah,
I mean, kind of the way that they've eased in with other guys coming back from injury. I mean, even like thinking back to Mack Wilson again last year, like he missed a couple games coming off the hyperextended knee, and he played, but it was in a very limited role. And I would expect
sparingly.
Grant
Yeah.
Delpit to be, yeah, I think he'll be in a limited role to begin here.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, especially because his initial return from this hamstring injury resulted in
Another
an
one,
injury within a day and a half, right? So he didn't
yeah.
even get through two practices. So you got to be really careful with him. And obviously, it's his debut. That's a big deal. So what are you thinking, like 10, 15 snaps at the most, probably?
Yeah, in that neighborhood, I would think. I mean,
Okay.
that's a guess, but yeah, I would think. And what's interesting, Brad, too, is like there was part of me that wondered, like, could Richard LeCount impress the coaching staff enough to like do a little bit of dime with him in a three safety look?
I thought the same
And the
thing, yeah.
and the answer is no, right? And
Okay.
I mean, I think we found that out when Ronnie Harrison got in the sideline altercation with the Chiefs running backs coach, and they brought MJ Stewart in
Correct,
to
yeah.
replace him for the rest of the game. So, yeah, I really think Grant Delpit is the guy that they need to be healthy to run the big dime the way Joe Woods wants to. And so, hey, he's starting to get there. So I think they'll work it in and not try to go overboard with it. Brad, I think you're kind of putting a nice ballpark number on it that I would, it's a guess, but I like that one.
Yeah. And maybe even you think, if this game gets out of hand a little bit, maybe they get him a little couple looks in just regular two deep or whatever, too, and ease him in that way, too, if they can get a bigger lead in this game.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, ideally, in a perfect world,
That would
he would be able
that
to
would
take
be
care of business and work on some stuff at the same time.
yeah, absolutely. So we'll look forward to that return, though. I mean, that's a big deal, and really more than anything, I'll just take a big sigh of relief if he comes off the field healthy at the end. More than anything, I would think. So Malik McDowell has emerged here, Nate, as very impressively, and become a big part of this defense pretty quickly. Does he increase the ceiling of this defense overall? Just his presence? I mean, he's better than probably what they expected they were coming in with, right?
I think there's no doubt about it. Like, hands down, yes. The answer is yes, because, I mean, you're talking about a guy like I respect the guys who do a lot of research on the draft, and Dane Brugler is one who I respect most of all. And he says this guy was a top 5 natural talent, just in terms of raw talent in that draft, 2017. Myles Garrett obviously was the number 1 pick, so we know he was in that top 5.
Yeah.
But when you throw Malik McDowell in that category, he gets picked early in the second round. I think it was dinged and well documented, dinged for character concerns heading into that. It ended up manifesting itself, unfortunately, but he's turned his life around in the eyes of Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski and a lot of other people in the Browns organization. They give him this chance after all that time that he wasn't playing football, was in jail and everything. Obviously, it's like a storybook, comeback. And, yeah, I mean, to get a guy who has that physical ability, who's a first-round talent, you were going to have Andrew Billings in there. And he's a run stuffer. There's a value to him. There's a skill set that he brings, but it's not the explosive, dominant force, a guy who can be just a destructive presence as a penetrator in the passing game. Also, obviously playing the run, had a TFL on the Browns' first defensive snap of the regular season.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just so much that he can bring. And when you look at him, and I'm used to seeing these huge NFL players day in and day out, but he stands out among them. I mean, he looks like, he's not quite as tall as Calais Campbell, but he is that kind of just mountain
specimen.
Yeah, I mean, he really is. And yeah, I think that he is a real find. What a great bit of research by the Browns to bring him in, meet with him, and feel comfortable enough to give him this chance. And look what he's doing with it now. Chris Kiffin, the defensive line coach, talked today, Friday. And it was really interesting because he said he did not think that he could envision Malik McDowell starting for him to begin the season. When training camp started, he was like 303 pounds. Somehow he added a bunch of weight during camp when you got to be.
How it's possible.
Yeah, burning an insane amount of calories and everything. Yeah. He said he thinks a lot of it's muscle, but he's up to like 317 and has stayed there. So, yeah, I mean, I didn't know, like, because it was like his progression. It came along slowly in training camp because obviously he'd been out of football for a long time, and his teammates have said they noticed it, and he said it too. So there was years of rust. Then there was a rib injury.
Yeah.
And so it was just, I mean, and going back to the spring, there was a soft tissue injury too. So it was like, it just took a while. But once the preseason game started and he dominated the last 2, he bull rushed the Falcons center out of the stadium. I was like, okay, I've got to put him on the team. Heading into that, I really didn't know because they like Sheldon Day a lot. That coaching staff has a lot of trust in him. He started a Super Bowl for them in San Francisco for Woods and Kiffin. They had their cake and ate it too. Sheldon Day's on the practice squad, and they've got this amazing find in Malik McDowell in the starting lineup now.
Yeah. Speaking of Sheldon Day, I was a huge fan of his during camp. I actually had him, if you just did it on merit alone and not based on draft picks, he definitely would have been on the 53, right? I think.
Yeah.
He earned that spot and probably outperformed Billings at that position, in the preseason. Does he make his way into a role on this team at some point? Because that seems to make more sense than putting Billings out there, who really has been underwhelming so far, to be honest.
I'm telling you, they love Sheldon Day. Chris Kiffin knows he can rely on him. You know, he's not a superstar by any means. He's only got a handful of starts in his career, but those starts came in the playoffs with
Big,
the
big time.
49ers and big
Yeah.
games in the Super Bowl, the biggest of all. And yeah, they really like him. And yeah, I expect as long as he is a member of the Browns program, whether, he's on the practice squad for a while or sneaks into the active roster, that he will have a role at some point this season. Just simply because like the practice squad rules are the way they are, and you can bump two guys up a week and play them. And we saw that last week with Elijah Lee, and
Yep.
now one injury look, and he's going to be in there even more. Obviously, he was a special teams player for him last week, like I think 22, more than 20 special team snaps. So yeah, I think Sheldon Day is definitely a guy to remember, because
Yeah.
I think that as this season goes along, he'll somehow find a way to make a difference for the Browns and play some meaningful snaps.
Yeah, I think so too, Nate. Absolutely. Especially if Billings doesn't step up or somebody else doesn't step into that role, I think he certainly will get the opportunity at some point. You're
Yeah.
watching All Eyes on Cleveland with Nate Ulrich of the Akron Beacon Journal. Nate does fantastic work covering the Browns. You could just watch his Twitter timeline and you'd know everything that you need to know about the Browns at all times, and read his work over at the Akron Beacon Journal, which is always terrific. I'm a big fan. All right, Nate, just a couple more questions here for you, and I'll get you out of here. Donovan Peoples-Jones was camp standout.
Yeah.
Played almost 50 snaps, right, I think, or 50, 47 or something like that. That may be wrong, but a lot of snaps. He played a lot of snaps on Sunday. One target. Do they think they make a concerted effort to get him the ball this week?
Well, I want to say that Baker Mayfield isn't going to force it to anyone.
Right.
Because that would be the best thing for the Browns and the offense.
Yeah.
To play within the flow of it and base it all on progressions. But yeah, I think it would be wise to involve Peoples-Jones, at the same time if there's a way, because the only target he made a really good catch on a big third down.
He did.
It was the final possession. Obviously, ended up in the turnover. Mayfield got tripped, and resulting in an interception. But he made a big third down catch on a slant on the only target of the game. So showing that, yeah, if you throw to him, he is going to be reliable, and he was the undisputed MVP of training camp. There's no turning back. We can't take that away from him, Brad. No matter what happens in this regular season, he did that in training camp, and I think it was for real because he came up big as a rookie. I mean, not many catches. Did he have like 12, 14 catches off the top of my head, something like that? But they were big. A lot of them were big catches. Obviously, the game winner against the Bengals, and another, I think it was a 75-yard touchdown against the Titans. Yeah, so I think getting the ball to Donovan Peoples-Jones would be wise, but I do think that, you got to be careful if you're Baker Mayfield, and just trying to, play within the structure of the offense and base it on reads and everything like that. But yeah, I mean, if I'm Stefanski and Alex Van Pelt, am I trying to scheme things and call things and design things to get the ball in his hands more? I would say yes. So, Anthony Schwartz was kind of the darling of the opener.
Yeah.
Once you get past, Jarvis Landry being a healthy Jarvis Landry at that, looking better than I remember him looking in many, many Browns games, even though he has been a very good player for the Browns.
Yeah.
So I think that we could see more Donovan Peoples-Jones, but I do think that there's going to be like a theme to the season that after every game, we're going to be able to like look at a player and say, okay, so why didn't he get it more? Just because there's just so many options out there for the Browns, and whether it's Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, we can talk about them on and on and on and on. But when you look at the receiving core and you got Jarvis Landry, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Anthony Schwartz or Shard Higgins only played 4 snaps. What's up with that? Well, he's coming off a hamstring injury, and Alex Van Pelt said, yeah, there's still tightness there, and his role is going to grow as the season goes on. And what happens when OBJ gets back in the mix? We haven't even talked about the tight ends yet. So obviously David Njoku looked really good. Austin Hooper made some nice plays early in the game for him. One of them was a big 4th down catch when they were being aggressive there in the early going. So I do think that there's so many weapons that we're going to be able to say this time and again during this season. But yeah, I'm a huge advocate of getting Donovan Peoples-Jones the ball because I think that he's for real. I don't think that this is like a all Berea guy and he doesn't show up in the big moments and big games. I think he really will do that given the opportunity.
Yeah, me too, Nate. And I think it's important too. And you're right. I think he had I don't know, he averaged almost 17 yards a catch last year. It was absurd in his small number of catches. They were all big plays and they were all terrific. But with the question marks in this room going past 2020, 21, or 2021 into 2022, 23, you obviously want him to be a big part of that as a guy that's already there. He's one of the few guys is going to be there. So obviously you would like to see him either fill that wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2 role going into the future. So the more you can get him involved, the better. But obviously I think you're right too when you say it's going to be a different guy every week in this offense probably, yeah?
Yeah, I think so. And actually, my desk is like this where I just have things scattered, and I look over here, and Donovan Peoples-Jones' 2020 stats are right here: 14 catches for 304 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He had 21.7 yards per catch. So I think the guy is a steal of a 6th-round pick. There's no doubt about it. He doesn't have to do anything else, and we can say that. That's fair. I mean, you got a lot of 6th-round picks who will never sniff making your 53-man roster, and he played a huge role, and you win in a couple games last season. So already a steal. And I do think he has succession plan written all over him. To your plan, I've written it. I don't think that there's any doubt about it that, this could be the last dance for OBJ and Landry as teammates. We know what the salary cap implications are. And yeah, they're managing it right now, but we know that the Browns have paid Nick Chubb and they're going to be paying other guys, whether it's this year or in the off season. So yeah, I think Donovan Peoples-Jones is a real factor when it comes to the present and the future of the receiving corps.
Absolutely. You wrote an article on Jarvis Landry saying you think this could be the best season he's had in a couple of years, right? Yeah. And it was a really good article. You talked about him. He shed a few pounds, and it's the first time he's been healthy in some time. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? I mean, he did. He looked fantastic. The double spin into the end zone. He just runs so hard. And for me, it was interesting that in the article, I think you linked or somebody linked the Contagious speech, right? From Hard Knocks. Absolutely. Right. He's the heart and soul of the Browns for me. And, he's the first guy that started to change this thing and turn this thing around. I would really hate to see him go after this season. If it came down to him or Odell, I just really would like to see Landry, either finish his career as a Brown or just be a part of this going forward. I just think he's so important off the field, on the field, and that his mental toughness too, But yeah, you wrote a really good article about why you think this will be his best season as a Brown.
Yeah, and it's just from talking to him and obviously watching him play the other day. When he hurled that guy, I was like, wow, that's, we hear guys say a lot of things about feeling like they're in the best shape ever and all this stuff. But he had that hip injury. He played all of 2019 with it, and then he reluctantly had surgery on it in the offseason after the 2019 season. He actually decided not to have surgery on it. Then he played in the Pro Bowl and was like, oh, no, it doesn't feel good. If it's not feeling good now, I better get this taken care of. He was on the fence. He had the surgery. And then he didn't get, as he called it, his speed training. He was just rehabilitating. He wasn't, healthy enough to get bigger, faster, stronger, per se. He was just trying to get the hip right all off season last year. So then this year came around, and he finally was able to kind of move past that, rehab phase, and feel fully healthy like a year removed from that surgery. And don't forget, he broke a rib last year against the Colts in
Oh yeah,
October and all that. So there were other things. The guy's just so tough. And
he
what I
is.
really admire about him is a lot of guys play through injuries in the NFL. Everybody basically plays through injuries to some degree. Not all guys play well and produce when they're hurt, and he does. So
It's a great
I
point.
just see a guy who is feeling good mentally and physically, and has talked about it throughout training camp. I asked him about it. He really lit up and shared a lot, and his weight, like he said on his YouTube series, and then talked about later with us in Berea, is down to where it was in like his second or third season when he was with the Dolphins, and really had a lot of more shake to his game. And he's always been good after the catch. But I think we're going to see it at another level, and I think we saw the start of that Sunday. Not to mention, I mean, this kind of goes without saying, but I will just say it that they need him more than they would if they had him and OBJ to lean on. If
No
it's
question.
one of them in the early going, then he's the go-to guy. So I just think that you know the the stars are aligning for a lot of guys on this team. Myles Garrett on the defense is the one who stands out with everything they've surrounded him with him
Yeah.
getting past, a couple crazy years. He had the suspension in 19, he had COVID in 20. The stars are aligning for him to finally put it all together. And I think although Landry's had a great career and 5 Pro Bowls and all that and been a really good Cleveland Browns player, I think the stars are aligning in a lot of ways for him to be the best he's been since he got traded here.
Yeah. That's awesome to hear. A huge Landry fan over here at All Eyes on Cleveland. You kind of led me into my last question here. The whole OBJ thing, he goes in designated not as questionable game day decision. Stefanski kind of makes an executive decision. At least it sounded that way on Wednesday. Pardon me. That he doesn't want to go through practice giving reps to a guy that might not play on Sunday. Is kind of what it sounded like to me, Nate. So where does that leave us with him at this point? I mean, does he have to be ready by Wednesday to play the rest of the season, or you tell me what you think about where he's at and how Stefanski's going to handle it going forward? Do you think?
Well, first of all, I'll go back to I could go back a long ways, but I'll go back to his youth football camp, like a couple days before training camp started. So late July, he had a youth football camp at Gilmore Academy, and
Yeah,
to I will give Odell credit. As good as he looked in all his Instagram videos and in mandatory minicamp when we got to lay eyes on him in Berea, he didn't overhype this. He said that he was going to run his own race and he wasn't going to rush back. And in the past, he's felt like he has rushed back from injuries before. Obviously, he had the broken ankle with the New York Giants and had surgery and all that. He said he wasn't into that. He wasn't into rushing it. So he wasn't going to make any promises. So I got to give him credit. He did not make any promises. I think that we and I mean including myself, obviously, as Browns beat writers who get to watch every practice. And we don't get to watch as much once they switch to regular season mode. It's only like a half hour.
yeah,
But we get to watch every minute of every training camp practice. I think that the expectation universally from the beat, and definitely for me, was that he was going to play in week 1 because he looked ready. When we saw him making cuts, ramping up, working in 11 on 11, when you hear his teammates say that he looked like his old self, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Kareem Hunt, the week of the game leading into Kansas City, Alex Van Pelt talking about him ramping up, seeing Odell go first in the drills. He was at the front of the
yeah,
line. He's in the 11 on 11s, even though we're not allowed to watch him. We just saw all these signs, and then we see the Browns take it to like a game time situation, or at least present it as if it's such, and then he doesn't play. And then you talk to Alex Van Pelt and Anthony Schwartz about Schwartz playing a decent amount of snaps because they wanted to give him some, but he also took some snaps to kind of compensate for Odell not being there. it's not just the media who thought, at least for a good chunk of time, that he was going to be playing week one. And so I think Stefanski, instead of having that, uncertainty in the locker room, it wasn't just the media core that there was uncertainty, but in the locker room, when it came to, as he says, a game planning practice standpoint,
Yeah.
it's better to know what you're dealing with. And so if it's going to be a close, he may or he may not go Sunday against the Texans. Let's just get out in front of it and plan accordingly and just say, we're not going to make this decision, down
On
to the
Sunday.
wire. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're gonna plan so our young guys, let's not forget, we can praise DPJ as much as we want, and I certainly have on this video podcast with you, Brad, but he's still a young guy. And
Yeah.
Anthony Schwartz is obviously a really young guy
Yeah.
who just made his NFL debut and missed most of training camp with his own hamstring issues. So it's like, let's give these guys a better chance to prepare. And so I think that was the point. Like, let's take the uncertainty away from it for our team, and let's be able to prepare a little bit better in our receiving core. And oh, by the way, I'm speaking as if I'm Kevin Stefanski. I don't have to be asked about it every day now. My players and my coordinators don't have to be asked about it every day, and because they're going to say what we already know. Odell looks great out there. There hasn't been a setback. And he's never worn a brace. He's never grabbed at the knee. There's never been any wincing to the visible eye that anybody's been able to see. So he looks good. They're going to say it, but he's not going to play. So let's just cut to the chase there. And so Stefanski said this. He'll let us know as we go. And I do think that it'll probably be a Wednesday announcement. Like, yeah, okay, this is the week that we plan on Odell playing, and I don't know if it'll be next Wednesday, but I wouldn't be surprised at all. And the wild card in all this is like trusting your knee, and that's a mental thing, right? Okay, so he may look great, but does he trust it? And I tore an
That's
ACL.
tough. Yeah.
I tore an ACL, and obviously, could never dream of being a fraction of the athlete of a NFL player, let alone an Odell Beckham Jr. So it's like, the trust thing is real. Like, that is real, and Odell is going to know how he's feeling. And so it's not just going to be Stefanski or Joe Sheehan, who's like, the head of athletic training for the Browns, or their doctor, Dr. James Voos of University Hospitals. It's not going to be just them. It's going to be Odell. And it's going to be Odell's trainers, medical people. It's going to be a big collaborative effort, and it's going to lead probably, based on what we saw this week, to a Kevin Stefanski Wednesday announcement of how they're going to proceed.
Yeah, that's kind of what I took away from it. Like, we're not going to play this game where we go to Sunday not knowing anymore. Like, Stefanski comes across to me as the kind of guy that is not down with that.
Right.
And he's just he wants to be fully prepared or have, his backup options in place. But throwing that part of the game plan up in the air until Sunday just is not his style, certainly. As attention to detail and stuff. You're right. He's looked fantastic for 2 months. He's looked physically like 100%. Yeah. And then you hear him say that he wasn't comfortable, I think was the quote or whatever, on Sunday. And that, to me, kind of, Nate, goes mental. Like, that makes me think mental a little bit. Like, I'm not comfortable. Maybe he's not ready mentally yet. And then I've heard a couple people mention, well, he hasn't taken any contact. Well, he's not going to take real contact in practice, is he, Nate? I mean, the first contact he's going to take is in a game.
I agree. And Stefanski's been asked about that a couple times. And Stefanski actually came out Wednesday and said, like, hey, like, pretty much for every team, he would, in this scenario, he's probably not going to take any contact until he gets into the game.
Exactly,
yeah. For every single team, but he's basically said, like, I don't think that's the, like, deciding factor here. Yeah. So and it isn't. It's a matter of what we're talking about, Brad. It's a matter of him feeling comfortable. And, like, I asked Stefanski after the game, because he said, it's funny, like, we forget sometimes that, like, sometimes in my role, like, I'll think I hear something or I don't hear something right. And sometimes Stefanski or a player will forget a pronoun. Like he'll say like just decided he wasn't ready to go. Like he worked out really before the game. We talked about just decided he wasn't ready to go. Well, who decided he wasn't ready to go? Did
Yeah.
Kevin Stefanski decide? Did Odell Beckham Jr. decide? So I said with my mask on, at midnight or what?
Yeah.
It was
Uh,
it's midnight now, but no, it was 8 o'clock at night or something. I'm like, okay, so did you decide he wasn't ready or Odell? And he said Odell decided that he wasn't ready for a significant amount of snaps in this game against Kansas City. And so I decided we're going to make him inactive. So that's the thing. Like, they obviously don't want to just throw him out there for a handful of plays. They want him to play a role. And until he's comfortable with that and they can, come together and decide, hey, this is the role we need. This is what he says he's comfortable with doing. Then it's not going to happen. But I think that they're not far off, and
Definitely.
it's hard to pinpoint it. I won't be surprised at all if it's week 3 against Chicago, but it's hard to lock in on it because there is, there's the wild card nature to this, and that's Odell feeling comfortable with it, and the mental aspect of coming back from something like this. He's only 10 months out from that surgery, and he has not talked. That's the other thing. We can't read
Yeah.
his mind. He has not talked since Gilmore Academy. There's a reason I reference that. I don't have a more recent interview to reference. That's the last time he talked. And, he did send out that tweet on Tuesday
Hmm.
with Greyhound dogs running a race, and there's a cheetah sitting back in its stall
Hmm.
and just kind of watching everybody else. And he put that red circle around that cheetah. Well, I mean, I'm not a genius here, and I don't think it's too much going out of a limb to say that Odell's calling himself the cheetah here, and he is running his own race. He said running. Made a reference to running his own race 3 times in that interview at Gilmore Academy and at that youth football camp. And the interview is only like 4.5 minutes long, so he's really focused on running his own race and not running anybody else's race. Not coming back
Sure.
when Brad Ward wants him to come back, or when I want him to come back, or when anybody else who's a fan or a media member or even a coaching staff member or another player. It's all about Odell running his own race, and Odell's going to come back when he's comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he's made that clear, and I think Stefanski's made himself clear how he kind of feels about that too. About we're not going to play this dance. So I'm glad that they've come to that. But yeah, I don't think it can't be that far off. But certainly we want him to be healthy at the end of the season more than we need him right now. So obviously wait and take his time. It's obviously not that important at this point. But just from watching him run, you're a little surprised that he's not ready because dang, you look so good, right?
Yeah, like I said, that's what I mean. I wrote, and I'm not ashamed of this, that all signs were pointing and playing in week 1 because from my perspective and what we're able to see, and talking to teammates and coaches, all signs were pointing to him playing.
Yeah.
Now, I don't get into the locker room to ask Odell, and if he said, "Oh, I'm still not really feeling, 100% sure that I'm ready to go full game speed, 30 plus snaps and cut and do this and that." Well, that would be a sign that would point the other way. But without him talking, we don't have that sign to go off. So
Absolutely.
we're going off watching him closely, which we did all summer. We're going off what his teammates and his coaches are telling us. And we're going off the fact that, hey, in a lot of their minds, they were waiting to see. Now, the tip off in hindsight is that Jarvis Landry wasn't making any promises either, just like Odell wasn't. And, you don't, at the time, you don't know if Jarvis is just unsure or anything like that. But I think that Jarvis was probably the strongest in pumping the brakes. If you read between the lines back
Yeah.
what he said last week, and nobody knows Odell better in all of Berea, probably in all of Northeast Ohio, except for his family who's here. So yeah, that was probably the, if there was going to be one sign that was pointing the other way that I could have detected better, it would have been that.
Yeah, that was maybe the tell that we didn't see there, probably. All right. I keep saying last question, but then I have one more for you.
Oh, I'm good, Brad. Whatever you need.
All right, you're a good man, Nate. Nate Ulrich of Akron Beacon Journal. This is All Eyes on Cleveland, special Friday edition, week 2, home opener, First Energy Stadium, 1 p.m. Eastern, hosting the Houston-Texans, which look a lot like the 2000 through 2000. Not 2000, 2010 through 2021 Cleveland Browns, right? A lot of Browns, 7 Browns over there, 8 Browns over there. Interesting.
Yeah.
Some of them starting, playing huge roles. The interesting thing about this Texans team, and this is what I want to ask you about, is when you have a team that doesn't have very high expectations. I think their win total is at like 4 or 5 or something like that in Vegas, and there's not a lot, to this. There's not a lot expected from them. You think younger team rebuilding, but that's not really the case. They went out and got a ton of guys in free agency, like a super huge free agency class. They really took anybody that could sign with them on a cheaper deal, and they have a lot of experienced pros, a lot of guys that have bounced around. So the thing about that is, it's a scrappy professional team that's probably going to win some games that it shouldn't, because of the makeup of the team and Dave Culley's kind of attitude. Organizationally, they may not want them to win those games, and we saw that in week 1. Do you see any? Not that presents an issue for the Browns, but do you see any issues matchup wise for the Browns in this game on Sunday?
Well, first of all, I totally agree with you, and it reminds me of like an Eric Mangini team when he was here, because
Yeah,
you're rebuilding, obviously not expected to be very good, but you do have some veterans, who, hey, they can get you a handful of wins.
yeah,
And I don't think it's a coincidence that they come from that same tree, Mangini and Nick Caserio over here with the Texans now, and obviously Belichick disciples. So, yeah, that is an interesting point, Brad. And I do think that you have to respect this team. And Kevin Stefanski he certainly has been, as Anthony Walker Jr. said before he got injured, plastering that 1-0 Texans everywhere, 0-1 Browns. And Stefanski said 1-0 Texans right after the loss to the Chiefs in Kansas City. So, yes, in terms of matchup, I'm looking at really, I mean, the Browns should win this one, and they should win it, by a good margin. I have it at 34-20, and I think that it probably won't even be as close as you might think that score suggests. Not that
yeah,
that's close in the NFL, but I think that maybe that would include a garbage time touchdown by Houston. I think the Browns really ought to take care of business here. I'm not really concerned about a lot of matchups. I do think that the Texans have a couple of players that the Browns need to watch out for. Brandon Cooks is the
Brandon
first one. I
Cooks.
mean, I
Yeah,
watched the Texans Jaguars game. The guy is amazing, and he is definitely a threat to make that big play. Not quite Tyreek Hill, not quite that speed, but he has that same type of big play threat. Is going to put up big numbers. I think he's got I think 3-game streak dating back to last season. I think he's over 100 receiving yards. He's got
yeah.
that nice little streak going. I think Odell had 4 when he was with the Giants, I think as a
Interesting.
rookie. Yeah, so I think that's a record to tie that hasn't been done in quite a long time, like, until Odell did it. So, yeah, I mean, he's a guy that Drake Newsome the second was not tested much. That was a surprise of the Chiefs game.
Yeah,
You think, and he thought so heading in, that Patrick Mahomes is going to, and Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy are going to test you more, being a rookie making your debut, and they really didn't. So I think that the Brandon Cooks matchup is definitely one to watch with, the Browns corners. And, the running backs, I mean, I just, they're household names.
yeah.
those are among the veterans that we're kind of talking about, Brad. I think that when we think about it, and then obviously Tyrod Taylor, and we know him here in Cleveland, who can do some damage with his arm, you know, be efficient, take care of the ball, and also I think he had a run of 40 plus
He
yards
did. Yeah.
against Jacksonville. So yeah, I mean they've got some guys who, you know, they can there's a chance that they can put up some points, but you know, I don't anticipate it being uh you know, a big problem for the Browns. I think this is the game where the D line really kind
Yep.
of eats, because I think the D line got a lot of pressure. I think Pro Football Focus tracks all this stuff very well, better than anybody
Yeah,
in
I got it right
business.
here.
Yeah, I think it was 8 pressures for Miles that they gave him, and 4 for Clowney, and I'm sure there's some other guys in there with chunks of them
Yeah.
too. But
8 for Garrett, 4 for Clowney, 4 for Tack,
okay,
23 pressures in total with 2 sacks.
so I think that the Browns can get home more in this game because
Yeah.
Tyrod will take some sacks. He will. He's mobile and he can get away from them, and he can avoid them. And you will miss some sack opportunities, but he will also take some.
And he's
And
not
that's
Patrick Mahomes. Yeah.
he's no one is, and that's the thing about Tyrod. One of the reasons why I think, in going back to his brief Brown stint and studying him a little bit, um, you know, one of the reasons he doesn't turn it over a lot is because he'll take a sack instead of forcing something.
Interesting.
Uh, you know, so I think that this is a game where the D line really kind of, you know, really has you know, whatever, a big day in front of the crowd. And that's a thing too. Like that D line and the get off and the crowd noise, and the first energy being packed for the first time since 2019. You know, that's when the D line has a real chance to feast. So I think that that's really going to be the matchup, you know, that the Browns will hope to take the most advantage of. And then, of course, you know, we can't go without saying on the other side of the line of scrimmage, the Browns' offensive line, you know, they're obviously going to be in for a little bit of a matchup to watch, because we don't know who the starting left tackle is going to be. Jedrick Wills Jr. Did not practice all week, ankle injury that he left the opener with. He's questionable for the game. His main backup, Chris Hubbard, he came in and played 30 some snaps in the opener. I think it was 39. Yeah, 39 in relief of Wills. And he's out with a triceps injury. They ruled him out.
Triceps.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so it's going to be James Hudson III or Blake Hance. Okay. Now, I know Alex Van Pelt said we're getting rookie James Hudson III ready, but I'm not convinced that's the way they'll go, because, you know, James Hudson III played both tackle spots in training camp in the preseason, and he's a 4th-round pick. He's a rookie. He passes the eyeball test. There's a lot to like about this guy's future, but he's a project. And Blake Hance, you know, he's a backup guard right now. Not that he is Joe Thomas or anything, but he's a guy that they have a little bit of experience with, and that came in the playoffs. You know,
Yeah.
he filled in the playoffs at guard, and then he filled in the playoffs at left tackle, which is crucial to this discussion.
Yeah.
In the January 7th divisional round loss to the Chiefs. Remember how it went? Wills went out on the first snap. He is cursed in Arrowhead Stadium. I feel really bad for him. He
Yeah.
had a high ankle sprain.
Looks like Nate is froze for the moment here. I thought he was going to come out of it there for a minute. 1 second here. See if we can get him back. This is All Eyes on Cleveland interviewing with Nate Ulrich. Nate froze up on us there momentarily. Oh, and we lost him like that. So we'll see if we get him back here to finish the interview up, but he's been fantastic so far, and I've already taken up almost a moment of his time. So for well, I can't read what that says there. I'm sorry. Most Culture TV thank you for the super chat. Grant Delpit debuting. Nate, since you've been at practices, do you think he's ready to roll on Sunday? We talked about this earlier a little bit with Nate, and he said that he thought that he would be sprinkled in a little bit. I mentioned 10 to 15 snaps. He kind of liked that number. And I brought that up because, oh, we got him back here. And he's back. Oh, there you are, Nate. Sorry about that, man. You froze up on us, and you're back.
Sorry about
good to have
that.
you.
I don't know if you heard me, but yeah, I was talking about Blake Hansen, his experience, and
Yes.
wouldn't be surprised if the Browns went with him at left tackle.
Yeah. The only thing I was going to say to that is before he froze up there is I was going to mention that my concern there is just that Hudson looks like you said, he looks like he has all the tools and all the right stuff, but in the preseason, he had a 30-some PFF grade in pass rush or pass blocking. He seems to be better in run blocking at this point in his career, and that worries me a little bit.
Yeah, he's a project at this point. That's why I think just a guy who they had in the playoffs play left tackle in a pinch. After Jedrick Wills and Kendall Lamb were hurt, Blake Hansen ends up playing left tackle in the playoffs. So I just think that there's a trust factor there. Now, I mean, here's the thing, Brad. It's like when you had Bill Callahan, you trust in Bill Callahan.
No question.
So, hey, if Bill Callahan thinks James Hudson III is ready, then I'll say, okay. And obviously they're going to scheme it to help him. But, I wouldn't be surprised if it's Blake Hance because of that. They did. They went through that battle in Kansas City. They got, they obviously did not win it, but he was in a huge game for them in a pinch. So, I would not be surprised at all if it's him. But it's Bill Callahan, so I'm not going to argue. I think whatever. I mean, that's a cop-out sometimes, right? Because, just because we don't know as much as coaches doesn't mean the coaches can't make horrible decisions. Obviously, it happens all the time.
Yeah.
But with Bill Callahan, I think that he's one of the best offensive line coaches and minds in the NFL. He might be the best. So that's why I go out of my way to pay him respect that way and say that, Bill Callahan has a better idea of who's ready than probably anybody in the league.
I do have a question here and we already kind of answered this, but we'll hit on it real quick just because it's a super chat here from Misfit Culture TV, as he corrected my pronunciation of it while you were gone. Misfit Culture TV wants to know, Grant Delpit debuting. Nate, since you've been at practices, do you think he's ready to roll on Sunday?
Well, I think he is ready to play a limited amount of snaps like we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
But I can't say, I mean, we get to watch about 20 minutes, a half hour now, so we don't get to see him running full speed in team. And Joe Woods just said the other day that, hey, he's only really just started his first live team reps. So that's an indication to me that, he hasn't been, ramping up to a full workload quite yet and isn't going to be ready for that in a game. So that's the way I look at it. Obviously when they list him, I'm pulling up the injury report right here, but they list him not
limited.
They list him as limited Wednesday and Thursday. They list him as full on Friday.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. And they don't list him as questionable or anything. He is expected to play. Having said that, I would be surprised if he goes out there and he plays, 40 snaps. I don't see that happening right off the bat. I think it's hey, let's get him in there and let's get some of that dime package, but let's not overdo it right off the bat. Because when you listen to Joe Woods and you listen to his philosophy about player usage, and it goes back to the JOK thing, it's like a little bit at a time, not too much, not all at once. We don't want to overflow anybody's plate or glass or whatever analogy you want to use. That's kind of Joe Wood's coaching philosophy, whether it's a guy who is a rookie coming in and this is all new to him, or a guy who's coming off a big injury. And, Grant Delpit is not technically a rookie, but both things are going on here. This is all new to him in terms of live NFL regular season action. This will be his debut, and he's coming off a big injury in the Achilles, and then a nagging, less severe but annoying one in the hamstring.
Thanks to Misfit Culture TV for the super chat on the question, and I had mentioned it while you were gone for that 1 second that I had said about 10 to 15 snaps, and you had liked that number for him maybe in the dime package, maybe sprinkle him in and a little bit of that. Maybe it'd be really nice, I think, just to be able to see that. We've heard so much about it, Nate. So much of this, we really haven't seen much of it at all. As you mentioned, 16 snaps last season. It would be, you'd have to really search through the tape to find those 16 snaps and throughout the season. I think they did it with once Ronnie Harrison was really kind of getting it in towards the end of the season is when we saw it a couple times a little bit more in some of those games. But, yeah, it's going to force this injury. We talked about that. Anthony Walker is going to kind of force JOK into maybe a few more snaps. Getting Grant Delpit is back is a great win in front of the home crowd. Should be really exciting. Should be a lot of fun on Sunday, especially when some of these younger guys are getting bigger roles. And for Delpit, I mean, what a long time coming for a home debut. So you got to feel good for the kid.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And he's a guy who they were just it's like he was last year's JOK. Like not that they were necessarily going to take him in the first round. There wasn't, a consideration along those lines that we ever heard of, but that they just coveted him in the spot they got him and thought that he was a steal and going to be a real centerpiece, a cornerstone to this scheme that Joe Woods wants to run. And so it has been such a long time coming. I mean, literally, he is a player who is a key to a huge facet of the defense that your defensive coordinator wants to run. I mean, it's hard to underrate that value, or you know what I mean? It's a big deal if they can get him back and build him up and get him really into the swing of things and be able to finally run the defense that Joe Woods really wants to run.
Yeah, no question. Keep them healthy, knock on wood. All right, Nate, you've been fantastic. Thank you so much for your time, man. You're great. Hopefully we can do this again sometime. I had an absolute blast with you tonight. I said before, I'm a huge fan of your work. Go to the Akron Beacon Journal and read Nate Ulrich's articles and work. He's got one out on that we talked about earlier about Jarvis Landry potentially having his best year as a Brown. It's really good stuff, as well as all of his other articles at Akron Beacon Journal. Anything else you want to plug, Nate, while you're at it?
No, I don't think so, Brad. Thanks for having me. Thanks for all the kind words. It was good discussion. Have you made a prediction yet?
I have not, but I like your 34-20. I'm actually going to say like 31-17.
Okay, so 14-point differential. So, yeah, I think that's kind of the sweet spot for a lot of people who are
cover. I think they'll cover that 12.5.
Yeah.
Or 13. Is it up to 13? Maybe 13 now. That's a big spread, Nate.
Yeah,
that's a big spread.
Yeah, it is. But they should. And I think, like I said, Stefanski has not lost back-to-back games as coach of the Browns yet in the same season. I know you could, if you want to be
Kansas City.
If you want to be picky, you can say Arrowhead.
Yeah.
But in the same
fair.
season, that hasn't happened, and I don't expect it to. I think they're going to take care of business until a Stefanski team shows me otherwise. It's going to focus, lock in, and not overlook anybody, and handle things the way it should be handled.
I agree, Nate. Once again, you've been fantastic. Thank you so much for your time, man. And hopefully we'll have you back on here in a couple weeks and talk again. I'll reach out, okay?
Okay, thanks, Brad.
Thanks, brother.
Anytime.
Have a good one.
You too.
Huge thanks to Nate Ulrich of the, I don't need this anymore, of the Akron Beacon Journal. I am wearing these clunky headphones. We had some technical difficulties right before the show. I updated a driver in my computer and my Bluetooth was not working, so the little earpiece is gone. So I had to throw these babies on just before Nate came on. I know they look kind of silly, but oh well. That's All Eyes on Cleveland. Mikey's on the ones and twos. My name is Brad Ward. Thanks for watching. Huge thanks to Nate. Nate is fantastic. I just his coverage of the Browns is top flight. Excuse me, top notch at all levels. And follow him on Twitter. Everything he puts out on that timeline, he's all over every important quote that goes on in Berea every day, and his articles are fantastic. So him coming on the show is tremendous on this bonus Friday edition of All Eyes on Cleveland. If you want to become a member of All Eyes on Cleveland, I urge you to go to www.alleyesoncleveland.com and click on Become a Member. You can become a member for just $3 a month and be a patron of the show. You get just like Robert Schulner and Nick Farmer here, who were huge thanks to for them being the members at All Eyes on Cleveland. You can also find that link in the description below. You get exclusive content. You get thanked on the show, just like these guys are, and you get access to me for questions you want asked to any of our guests at any time. It's kind of cool, and I urge you to do that. As I said, in the description, in the link is in the description below, and it is at alleyesoncleveland.com. Texans game, as we mentioned, a lot of pros here, a lot of guys that have been around, journeymen, veterans, not a young team by any stretch of the imagination, but Nate nailed it when he talked about the defensive line getting off and getting some results here. I really think this is the opportunity for them to do that. Miles with a big game, maybe Clowney with a big game, Malik McDowell with a big game. Lots of pressures last week. 23 pressures, 2 sacks, against Kansas City. Getting home will be huge this week, and I think they do cover the spread. So we appreciate you watching. Huge thanks to Misfit. Pardon me here. Let me get this correct. Misfit Culture TV for the super chats and the questions there. We appreciate that greatly here at All Eyes on Cleveland. Go Browns. Big week here. I expect more from JOK. I expect him to be... It's hard to say if they'll do it now, but in the nickel, he should be on the field as one of the two linebackers. We do see some of this dime sprinkling Delpit in a little bit to get him those maybe 10 to 15 to 20 reps, depending on how he's feeling. I think that they will sprinkle some of that dime in, but actually seeing that is really exciting. I mean, we've been waiting so long to see that defense, and I think that's ideally how this defense is built to work best, right? And we really haven't seen that yet. We haven't seen the defense to its full potential at all. So that's something that we really should be looking forward to seeing when Delpit gets on the field. Hopefully he can stay healthy, and seeing that dime. And then even if the game gets out of hand, I wouldn't be surprised if, they take one of the safeties off the field, probably in this situation, John Johnson or Ronnie, probably John Johnson, and get Delpit some work out there at free safety a little bit, just to get him acclimated, even in those 2 deep sets or single high sets that the Browns will run when they're in their cover 3 or cover 4 shell type looks, that you'll probably see if they get a big lead. Kind of similar to what we saw against Kansas City was their approach of playing a lot of zone, keeping the plays in front of them and trying to take away the big plays. That's what you would do ideally when you get a big lead in a game, and we may see some of that on Sunday. If the Browns can get a big lead against this Texans team, now they do have to take care of business, but I would expect the run game to be there. Brandon Cooks is the one threat. I mean, the numbers he's put up have been fantastic. Nate makes a great point there, too. He was all over everything tonight. Huge thanks to him for coming on the show. Hit the like button, hit subscribe, keep coming back. If you're fans of All Eyes on Cleveland, if you support what we do, become a member at the website or in the link in the description below, or tell a friend and tell them to check out All Eyes on Cleveland. My name is Brad Ward. I am the host. It's game week in week 2 game in less than 48 hours. You start getting excited, baby. It's that time.
You start getting excited, motherfucker! We gotta go!
Sir, all eyes on Cleveland. We here, yeah.
And with that, big thanks to Mikey on the 1s and 2s. My name is Brad Ward. This has been another edition of All Eyes on Cleveland. Keep coming back. And go Brownies. It's going to be 1-1 after this week. I'm telling you, you heard it here first. Not that that's a huge proclamation. And with that, thanks again to Nate Ulrich. And, of course, our first, I think that's our first ever super chat from Misfit Culture TV. Much thanks to you guys as well. And, of course, the members of All Eyes on Cleveland. Mikey, good job tonight, buddy. All Eyes on Cleveland. AllEyesOnCleveland.com. I'm Brad Ward. Go Browns. With that, we are out.